Welcome to Everything is Final Fantasy. My name is Drew Kreisman.
And I'm Ira Kreisman.
And on this episode, we discuss Eiyuden Chronicle. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. And it is a spiritual successor, Ira, to some games that we were big fans of when we were younger. Much younger.
All right, settle down there, mister.
I know, right? A game series that, again, I am not 100% sure I've ever known how to pronounce. I've heard people say Suikoden.
Mm-hmm.
I think when I was younger I said Suikoden.
Yep.
Either way, we've actually talked about that franchise a few times in reference to Final Fantasy and some things that it does really well that we'd love to see our favorite series adopt. And it's been pretty dormant for a long time, and oddly enough, not only do we now have this spiritual successor, but I'm pretty sure, again, I haven't researched all this as well as I could. Newborn baby is my all-encapsulating excuse for everything right now. But I do think they're remastering some of those old Suikoden games as well, which is awesome. So we get a return to this form, but why? Ira, I've got some pros and cons, and I'm going to let you decide the format of this a little bit. Do we want to go back and forth, or do we just want to get all of the cons out of the way, and then I'll tell you why I like this game?
Let's start with the cons. That might end on an up note.
Right. So if anyone's listening to this and is a little bit worried I'm about to say all these things I really don't like about this game, don't worry. I have many positive things to say, and so does Lachlan. But to start with, I will say the big thing for me that I think they really clearly wanted to give you an old school RPG experience, and particularly a challenging old school RPG experience. And in many ways, most especially the fact that you just can't, save on the world map.
Huh.
So their save points are back, right? And save points are... Okay, that is a trope of old RPGs, and modern RPGs have largely done away with them and let you save wherever you want. And I will say, going back and trying to play a new game in that old way, it feels very much hamstrung.
Yeah, I don't feel like the old save points were a product of creativity. Rather, I feel like they were a product of necessity.
Yeah, and I think, unfortunately, there were a few things like that where they were going for, the vibe. And a lot of times, I'm going to get to it later, vibes is actually where this game excels. But particularly with the save points, some of the stuff with the inventory, the inventory is really harsh. I made the mistake right away of forgetting that these games function a bit differently and tried to buy 20 healing potions just to go out into the world and be okay. But then I went into a dungeon and I couldn't get any of the treasure because my inventory was filled up.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Again, the reason those things existed was because of necessity. There was only so much memory space on these cartridges. It's the same reason that Dragon Quest had, I think they called it the restoration spell, which was a code. Because you couldn't save the game, but you could put in a code to have it remember where you were and what you had or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, it was a clever way to get around the memory issues, the capacity issues, but it wasn't, I don't think, what would have been done had those restrictions not been in place.
Right, and so having these inventory systems where you've got to store things, it's there is a certain amount of strategy to it, and there is... I've gotten into a little bit of, now that I know the dungeons are going to be super grindy and difficult and full of puzzles. Combat, while not especially creative, it feels challenging just because enemies do so much damage. And I don't feel like there's a ton, at least now I'm about 25, 30 hours into this, and so it may be worth coming back to once I've pushed forward. But my big thing that I would say to anyone thinking about getting into this game now, to save you some of the troubles I've already been through, just use a strategy guide.
Oh, really? Okay.
And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to have to go online. But once I started, and it really does feel like a game that should come with a physical strategy guide. It's that old school, yeah.
I still have some of those old strategy guides, and I like to just flip through them now and again.
Yeah, and they're great, but I do feel like, unfortunately, now I know there are people for whom, like, clever dungeon design of the 2D era is everything that RPGs were to them, right? We talked about this in our Final Fantasy series, how dungeon design was never one of the main draws for us. And I imagine there are people who have been longing for this type of design, but for me, there was a dungeon I came across about 15 hours into the game. Those of you who know probably know I went and found out because I had to get on YouTube to learn how to get through this dungeon, and every single comment was like, this dungeon almost ruined this game for me.
Huh. Okay.
It was just too grindy, too full of puzzles, too difficult to keep track of everything that you were doing because in between each fight, but I do imagine that for some people, they've been longing for that specific kind of puzzle solving, difficult dungeon grinding experience, because RPGs don't really do this anymore. But for me, playing through that particular one, the Proving Grounds, I was like, yeah, there's a reason. That's right, Lachlan. There's a reason they don't make them like this anymore.
I like a challenge. I don't want every battle to be easy every time. I want there to be a sense of danger, of tension. But I don't want it to be a Dark Souls game. And this feels like the RPG version of that, potentially.
I think in some ways, yes. But again, I think you can alleviate a lot of it by taking a strategy. Because again, if you're wandering around a dungeon and you're trying to solve a puzzle and you're not understanding it right away and you're going back and forth and you're getting in a lot of random encounters, and no particular random encounter is so tough and challenging, but you're running out of resources. You only have so many potions, and you know what I mean? And so I've had several times where I've just had to like restart a dungeon because I ran out of resources and I wasn't really getting anywhere. And once I learned where I was supposed to go, all my characters were almost dead or dying, or you know what I mean? So yeah. I do wish there was, to your point about Dark Souls, I wish this game had an easier difficulty setting.
Okay, yeah.
But I do think you can alleviate a lot of it. And I remember a lot of games that I just used the strategy guide anyway, including I think Final Fantasy IX. So I'm going to push forward. I'm going to have my strategy guide up open because the most recent dungeon I did, I ran into some similar problems. And if I don't end up completing this game, it will be because of this thing, of the just frustrations. And it's really too bad. Because now we get to talk about the other. I really think that's it for me. Some of these gameplay frustrations, you can't pause, you can't save. It's like, just give me the modern conveniences. I appreciate it on some level for about 10 minutes. And then I've got a newborn baby and a bedtime.
Right, yeah. I don't have the baby, but I definitely have the bedtime.
Right. So, Ira, on the plus side, vibes.
I love good vibes.
Oh, this game has incredible vibes. And it's why I would still recommend it to you whenever it goes on sale or something. And like I said, just use the strategy guide and avoid the frustration, because the pixel art, the HD 2D, I never did get into Octopath Traveler, which is a conversation for another time. Not on purpose. I think at first it didn't come out on the PlayStation, and now they are out, and I'm going to get around to them. But I haven't done a lot of the HD 2D stuff that people have been big on for the last several years, and I've also kind of balked a bit when people have suggested that Final Fantasy VI, for example, doesn't need the full 7 remake treatment. It should just get something like this. And I remember thinking, like, I want the full grandeur, and this feels smaller to me. Now that I've played Eiyuden Chronicle, I feel like, okay, I would very much take something like this for all of those early Final Fantasy games, and not... I still want the big thing, yes. But there's such a beauty to being able to take the pixel art, but really enhance it. It does feel like a modernization of that same concept. And so that in and of itself, just the visuals are extraordinarily pleasing for someone who grew up on a lot of those 2D RPGs. Have you played any of the HD 2D?
No.
You did Live a Live, didn't you?
Well, I played it on emulator.
All right.
So I'm playing the old Super Nintendo version, but translated by a fan group. So I would love to. Yeah, I would love to play. I know it's available for the PS4. I'd love to go ahead and buy my own copy of Live a Live and give it a shot.
Yeah. And so, yeah, this is another thing that I would say. This art style is great, and I'm looking forward to playing more games in it. Overlord, Unicorn Overlord does a little bit.
Yeah.
But in that game, when we talked about it, I complained a little bit or critiqued a little bit about some of the lack of fidelity, how everything kind of after a while starts to feel really flat.
Sure.
And in this game, I feel the opposite. Everything feels full and three-dimensional, and there's a lot of versatility and diversity to the visuals, and it doesn't get stuck in one place, which is how I felt, when I imagined an FF6 remake in this style. I imagined more like Unicorn Overlord and less like this, and I really would prefer it like this.
Have you noticed in Unicorn Overlord, whenever they turn around, they've got to switch their weapons real quick?
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah. Or the large gladiator lady, whichever eye has the eye patch switches.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that kind of thing where you just go, I get it. But yeah, the other thing I really wasn't expecting in this, in that same type of category, is the music. Another great reminder of how amazing those old soundtracks often were, but then they didn't have real instruments, right?
Sure, yeah.
And this soundtrack feels like somebody just went, I'm going to take Nobuo Uematsu and Yasunori Mitsuda, from like Chrono Trigger, Chrono Cross, all that stuff. I'm going to shove them together. I'm going to put them on real instruments, and here you go. And I've been very impressed with the music. And the one time that the story really, really got me emotional, I think the music was doing heavy lifting.
Oh,
and so,
okay.
Yeah. Even with, and I don't want to spoil too much or whatever, but even having the ability to put in like vocal tracks, right?
Nice.
Speaking of vocal tracks, the voice acting and the characters and the story, and this really is what keeps coming me back to it despite these frustrations with the gameplay, is that this is what we play these games for, right? And by these games, I actually specifically mean Suikoden and now this Eiyuden, where you get 100 eventually.
Cool.
Different characters to go out and find and recruit in various ways. Those characters all have different personalities, some of them more grating than others. Some of the voice acting is phenomenal. Some of it's just fine. My favorite character in the game is this princess who's just got the right attitude on her, and it's not even like your standard. And I don't have any problem with girl bossing. I know some people do, but there's a way of avoiding a tropey version of it that I think she does extraordinarily well, just by being clever.
Yeah.
And it's the characters. I like these characters. I love their voices. I want to find all of them, and I want to do the thing that we've been talking about in other podcasts throughout the years. I want to bring all of these people together and rebuild my town of rebels who were overthrowing the evil fascist empire. It's like, yes, this is what I want to do. My aunt is going to help us rebuild the farm and raise some chickens. And that is just as important as the noble warrior from the fishing village that is going to help us kill the bad guy, right?
Right. That sounds great. I got to say, that does sound really cool.
And I haven't even done much town restoration yet. That's kind of the thing that I'm most excited about, and I haven't been able to get into it because these dungeons are killing me.
Yep.
Again, that's why I wish there was a lower difficulty option, so I could experience the aspects of the game that I enjoy and that I want, so that I don't. There was one time I was trying to get through a boss fight a couple of weeks ago, about a week and a half ago. Mom was here. We're doing stuff, we're taking care of the baby, we're getting ready to come back and visit. I was like, we've got like an hour here. I'm going to try to get through this boss fight I've kind of been stuck on. And I ended up playing that thing for 3 hours. Like, Katie comes home, I'm still trying to beat this one boss fight. The baby's waking up. We're supposed to be doing life now, right?
Right.
Like, you got to put the video game down. It's like, I'm trying to get past this spot I've been stuck on. And I don't like that video game experience anymore.
One of the things you said about Unicorn Overlord that's really stuck with me is how much it respects your time. And I've been noticing that because I've actually put it down for about a week now. But it's easy to, if you go into a part and okay, now it's going to be a fight. There's going to be a storyline fight. It will then pause, and it will put the icon on the map, and you can go do other things in the game.
Right.
You're not set doing that thing right now.
Yeah.
Being able to pause whenever, being able to
Save
back
in
out
the middle of battle.
yeah, save whenever, back out and go buy
Yes.
some stuff or raise your rapport or whatever it is you need to do, I think is really great. So not having those things, I guess it's a deliberate, well, like we said, it's a deliberate attempt to harken back to the harsher days that were required just because of what the technology was capable of.
Right. So it's interesting that these last two old school style RPGs that I've played, I feel like have opposite problems. Where Unicorn Overlord has this extraordinarily satisfying gameplay system that, like you said, respects your time and allows you to do all these incredible things. But for me, ultimately, in the end, was an RPG with an okay story, an okay character. I liked all the characters. I liked the story. But I didn't feel like much of it went deeper than, skin deep much of the time. Whereas with Eiyuden Chronicle, it's completely flipped. It's like I'm frustrated by the gameplay loop. I'm not really having fun with the gameplay. But I love these characters. And Ira, there's a couple that I know you would just adore. It's funny. It's got me to laugh several times. Like I said, there was a moment that very early on, I'm like, damn, this is emotional. While it's not the most original Rebels versus Empire story I've ever seen, I am very much here for that, especially right now. I'm just, every time one of these characters says some F the man, we don't have to put up with it just because they've got jackbooted thugs, I pump my fist in the air and go, let's get them. Starting a revolution from the ground up, and like, it feels really good. And I love all of the characters. The main character, Noah, N-O-W-A, not like Noah. Even then, we're like, God, Noah, how interesting for that to be. Mm-hmm. He's probably the most vanilla of the group. He's got a little bit of that RPG, every man, put yourself, he does good because he does good.
Sure. Like a Lane from Unicorn Overlord.
Exactly. That's probably the biggest similarity. But I do wish that I could just shove these two games together. I want the Unicorn Overlord combat and battle systems and character growth models with the cast and story of Eiyuden Chronicle. Sure.
Okay. Cool.
And that's it for this episode. Subscribe to all the stuff, and we will see you next time.